'cause here's the biz.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Jay Graham for What's the Biz 559, and we got a special guest, Todd Cregar. And there's a lot to learn about this guy. I don't even know everything that he does yet, and I made it purposely not to ask so many questions because I wanted to be surprised in a genuine conversation. But I want to thank you for coming.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks, man.
Yes, thank you for taking out some time for us here, man. We want to learn about you, what you do, how you got where you are, and so this is your time right here. Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad to be here, man. This will be my initial podcast, so you're the first.
Ooh, there we go.
Hopefully not the last.
Yeah, no, I know people want to hear what you got to say, man. I already know that.
You know, to make a long story short, I grew up in probably one of the worst areas in Fresno, Southwest Fresno, and product of a family of 7, pretty much in poverty. Matter of fact, my 3 brothers and I had to actually sleep in the garage growing up because there was just no room for us in the house. Parents eventually converted that garage, made it through school, and the day after graduation from high school, it was probably the biggest awakening I ever had. I said, well, what do I do now? I had no plan. All my friends were going off to Fresno City College, and so I said, I'll just keep working. Worked a little bit. Ended up leaving the state, actually going to Weber State, just because I was challenged by a friend. But, the education I thought was going to get handed, which it wasn't. It was probably the worst experience of trying to learn.
Oh, wow.
Because moving out of state, not knowing anybody, not knowing the culture of living in Utah, because growing up, my father taught me a lot about business. I don't think he even knew that he was doing it at the time. Because my brother and I remember growing up, we said, hey, Pop, can we borrow the lawnmower and the edger and some gas? What are you going to do? We're going to go cut lawns. We're going to make some money today. So we borrowed the equipment. We went up. I grew up on Madison, Fresno, so we basically went from First and Madison to Cedar and Madison and back, and I think we made it was $36 that day. And so we got home. My dad said, let me see what you guys did. So he wanted to, let me count the money for you. So he did. And in turn, he gave us $12 of that $36 back. I said, wait a minute, we made $36 today. And he goes, no, that's not what business is. Business is a rule of 3. 1/3 for you, 1/3 for the company, and 1/3 for reserves. He said, this is my house. This is my equipment. This is my supplies. So you guys made $12 out of 36 today. And then throw in the newspaper, I remember getting a flat tire. Dad, can I borrow $1.50 to get a new inner tube for my bicycle? His response, you better get another job. So I did. So my friend and I would take substitute routes delivering the newspaper at Fresno Bee in the afternoon. And if you delivered one route for that day, you made $1.50 or $2. So I asked my friend, hey, can we borrow your motorcycle? Which was, of course, illegal as hell because we're 14, 15 years old, no license.
Right.
Especially, and no motorcycle license.
Yeah.
So we packed our newspapers, and he drove me around Fresno throwing that newspaper till I made my $2. Went and got my inner tube for my bike, repaired my bike, and then got a job at John John's downtown washing dishes. And so there's always been an avenue or an opening, but it was always a challenge to get to the next step. So
right.
Back to college, after 3 years in college, I thought, well, hell, I know it all already. I'm 22 years old. I know it all. You can't tell me anything. Well, I was actually asked to leave the campus when I was a junior because what kids do, get in trouble. So left the dorms, came back to California, went in the military, actually went in the Navy to start with. Did 4 years on an aircraft carrier. Again, thought, well, now I know everything again. Didn't know nothing. I knew nothing. So I went to the sergeant, to the master chief, and I said, hey, time for me to re-enlist. And he goes, oh, I see you have a re-enlistment bonus coming. I said, yep, and I'd like to get it. Navy refused to pay me my reenlistment bonus. So I came back to Fresno, went to the MEP station, said, hey, Army, what do you got? And the Army said, well, how much college you got? And I said, 3 years. And, well, you want to finish your college degree? You can go to college in the Army. Okay, let's do that. Mm-hmm. So they didn't tell me that I could only go to college when I wasn't out in the field or during exercise, and this is peacetime.
Right.
So after 6 years of going to one class on a Saturday for 4 hours, it took me 6 years to finish that last year of college. Mm. And during that time is when I met my wife and got married in Savannah, Georgia. She's from Southern California, and me being from Fresno, we moved back, and it's been a great experience ever since, because we're just kind of yin and yang. We balance each other out.
Right.
So
I met you at Chachansey, right?
Right.
And what is your work there? What do you do for Chachansey?
Well, the Fresno Grizzlies are owned by different organizations. Mm-hmm. So whether it's private or they're entities that buy minor league baseball teams. And Chachansey Park is just a stadium that's owned by the city of Fresno that the Grizzlies lease in order to put their product on the field. So the owners of the Grizzlies are sports and entertainment, which means concerts, baseball, soccer, whatever we can do to get people into that stadium, to include 100 nonprofit events, or 100 nonprofit organizations can use that stadium for free every year. Mm. So part of my deal with the Grizzlies is to bring revenue, partnerships. I bring some high school baseball, to inner city kids that can play ball in a stadium like that. They're never going to see another stadium like that as long as they live. Yeah. Help with the player housing, any kind of consulting or any kind of ambassadorship that I can provide. That because most of the owners of these teams aren't from Fresno,
right?
And our last owners were from Colorado, so they need somebody fresh and local that's going to help them navigate, through the day-to-day operations of this. And being on the advisory board with the Grizzlies, that was part of our roles to be ambassadors to connect ownership to people in the community that can help this team prosper.
Right.
So that's in any minor league baseball or major league baseball. It's always a challenge because it's all about the revenue, and they got to get people there. They got to get because they can't survive without the revenue. They can't pay their lease. And
it was something that that caught my attention when we first met. You were showing me, you was, pointing things out. We was looking out at the field, and you was like, you see that sign right there? And I was like, yeah. He was like, I helped get that in here, right? And I'm like, okay. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, what's the big deal? Then you told me the amount of money. And then you started pointing out all the other flyers everywhere, all the other people representing their business, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And that instantly captivated me. And then some of the other things you were sharing, I was just like, wow, this guy's knowledge is on another level. Like, yeah, I'm glad I met him.
Well, the thing too about being an ambassador for the Grizzlies is you got to be willing to accept a challenge when other people have failed. Sometimes you got to go back and try to fix other people's failures.
Yeah.
And there'd been some preeminent partnerships with that team over the years that were either lost or fractured. So I kept poking at them, and I kept, hey, well, so what happened? What happened? And they would never. Nobody would ever tell me what actually happened. Mm-hmm. So I'd go back to the ownership group and I'd say, hey, let's do this. Let's do this. Well, we had a bad experience. Well, there came a day when I said, and I told them, look, I'm never gonna ask you anything unless I know the answer to the question before I ask it. Mm. So he said, what are you getting at? I said, if you can put a program or a proposal together for Toyota, for their marketing team, I'll bet you I can get you in the door with those people. I didn't tell them who it was or how I had the connection, but they got it in. And on the way back from their meeting, they said, hey, can we meet? And I said, you want to discuss the contract that you just signed with Toyota? Well, how do you know that? And I said, you remember what I told you last week? I'm never going to ask you a question unless I know the answer before I ask you the question.
Right.
And they said, well, where do you want to meet? And I said, let's meet at Starbucks. Well, how do you know we're at Starbucks? Again. So met them there, and they. I remember Derek Franks, the general manager at the time. He goes, I hear him on the phone. He says, "What?" Ask Todd what he wants. What does he want from all this? And I said, downtown Fresno is the worst place to park. How about a parking spot? Can I trade you a parking spot for this? So that's what we did, and that's how I got a parking spot 7 years ago now.
Wow.
With just connecting people with resources,
right?
Putting people back together, mending prior to relationships that weren't what I thought they should be.
So it kind of threw me off because when you gave me your card, I was like, realty, like I don't, So what's the deal with that? Like you do real estate?
Yeah, I was a licensed realtor when I was working with state parole at the time, and I just could never. Once you get a hold of something, I can never let it go. So my license would come up for renewal, and I know I had to do 40 hours of continuing education to keep my license active. So I'd come home from work, and I'd do that. And I'd spend my wife say, what are you doing? I got all these hours of school I got to get done, and I got to submit all these certificates just to keep my license active.
Yeah.
And so finally there came a day I said, well, I'm going to get my broker's license. So I did. And that's helped a lot, too, because once you learn real estate law and different things that go on day to day with real estate, actually can help other people, with their day to day. And everything in life to me is like baseball anyway. There's always a similarity somewhere on between baseball and life.
Right.
So I've kept my license active and done, I think, pretty well from growing up in my parents' garage to where I am today. So
yeah. So when you said you would put things together, like with the stadium and stuff, how did you get to that position? Like with this. So we talked about this, the realty and where you're at, but what did you do? Like how were you getting these connections, these deals, these relationships with these different, people?
Well,
what did you do before that?
That's. To me, I'll approach anybody and ask anybody for anything. But meeting people along the way and picking their brain and doing what we're doing right now,
right?
It's a big deal to me because, another short story is we were down in spring training and there was a big team dinner, and some of the staff and coaches came walking in, and I saw this kid. African-American kid, probably 6'4", big dude. I said, man, I know that guy. And I said, well, maybe not, because he's probably only 35 years old, 40 years old. And I looked at him and I said, dude, are you, oh, no, you don't know me. I just came from UCLA. I was a strength and conditioning coach down there. The Rockies, the Fresno Grizzlies' new strength and conditioning coach. I said, man, you just look so familiar. So we sat down to dinner, and there's probably 40 of us at this big table. And I looked at the guy again, and I said, man, I know this guy. But I'd never met him before. So we started talking, and he said, oh, yeah, well, I was in the Navy. You're in the Navy? I said, yeah, I was on a Kitty Hawk. And he looked at me and said, my father was on a Kitty Hawk. When did you serve? 81 to 85. I said, what's your last name? He said, Stewart. I said, is Peter Stewart your dad?
Wow.
The connection, the table fell apart. Everybody dropped their utensils. It was like a big epiphany or something went on at that dinner that night. Man, it was just unbelievable. People still talk about that to this day. He says, I cannot believe what happened at dinner that night.
Wow.
And he said, it's funny that I'm even hearing, we even had this conversation because my father just passed away last week.
Wow.
But the time that I spent with his dad in 1981 catching the ferry from Bremerton, Washington over to Seattle because his dad was seeing his lady friend in Seattle,
Yeah.
which ended up being this guy's mother all these years
Wow. Whoa.
later. So,
That is crazy.
but there's something about my personality, I guess. I just can't let people go. Or they say your brain is the biggest computer in the world. I think I just have so much storage there that it's constantly accumulating.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff that you think you forget about, 40 years later, it comes back up, and it's just been in storage.
Yeah.
So when I met Chris Cummings, who was the owner of the Grizzlies at the time, I said, there's a lot going on down here. I just right out of the blue, I just walked up to him and said, hey, there's a lot going on here. How do I become a part of this? And he says, well, you know how the laws are in California. We can't hire you. We got this, and we got HR, and we got this. And he goes, but I got an idea. So about a week later, he approached me and said, we have this advisory board, but you have to be nominated. And I said, well, if you nominate me, who's going to tell the owner that I can't be on this board?
Right.
So he goes, you got a good point. So that was in 2015.
Wow.
And Chris just passed away just this last year.
Oh man.
So there are so many, you don't even know.
Yeah.
There are so many resources in this world. There's no way in hell you could even scratch the surface of any of it. There's no way. You're not capable of even absorbing half of what you need to absorb. There's not enough room there, man. But if you get into, I tell people all the time, I have a structured, disciplined lifestyle. Take what I can, get rid of what I don't need. After spending 10 years in the military, 22 years in law enforcement, almost 30 years in real estate, and this is all running together basically because, if you add those up, I'm 150 years old. But if you have one and the first 10 and then the next 20, but the last 30 are all part of that first 30, then it's always like a side gig, or just, I wanted to be a real estate agent and a broker because I got tired of paying everybody else.
Yeah.
And then by working for the state, I was able to sock away a lot of money, and I never used any vacation time. So when I left the state, I cashed that in and I invested. And I started investing in real estate.
Yeah.
And more and more and more. And then I found out the state said, oh, sorry, we overpaid you. We miscalculated. We want our money back.
What? What work did you do for the state?
I was a parole agent.
Okay.
So throughout that 20 years, like I said, you go to different phases of being a supervisor, being just a grunt, if you will. You earn different sick leave, vacation leave, and all this, and then they have to compute it. So when you retire, they say, hey, you want to cash this in? This is what you got.
Right.
So I cashed it in, and they didn't compute my sick leave and vacation as separate entities. They did it all as one. Well, I learned the hard way. You can't sell your sick leave back to the state because it's not yours. But the vacation time that you earn is.
Right. Oh,
So
wow.
the state, in their infinite wisdom, said, well, don't worry, we'll just take it out of your next check. And oh my God.
Oh man.
But to take it one step further, they finally said, you've been overpaid again. So they sent me a statement in the mail, and I kept it to this day. It says, due to the overpayment of 1 cent, we would like to recoup that money. You have a choice. You can either write us a check, and then the next choice was, or you can have this taken out of your check for the next 12 months. And I said, how are they going to take? They spent probably $500 to send me a notice that they want their penny back because it's not going to balance.
Wow.
So I kept that to this day just to show that,
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so when you got into real estate, did you get more involved with it? Were you buying and flipping, and did you get more involved in real estate, or?
I did, and it was the first lot I ever bought was the scariest thing. I didn't sleep for a week thinking, what the hell did I just do? I started finding lots and properties that nobody wanted. So I was over in the west side in Fresno, and I found a lot that was 30 feet wide by 140 feet deep, and nobody wanted it. And I said, the whole thing, what do you want for that? And he said, 25 grand. I said, 25,000. That was like $1 million, you know, back then.
Yeah.
And somebody said, well, what'd you buy a lot that's 30 feet wide? How are you going to build on that? And my response to them, my smart-ass response was, well, how wide is your mobile home? And most mobile homes are smaller than that. So I built my first house on the west side, and then I paid another broker to sell it. I said, why am I giving my money away to these people? So the little bit of money that I made there, I just kept buying more and more, building, flipping. And luckily, I was in the in the right company and was surrounded by the right people to keep me on the straight and narrow, because I was buying and selling stuff, just I could spend my money as fast as I could get it. And hey, dude, you need to slow down. Find your niche in real estate and stick to your plan. So my niche then became 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses under 1,400 square feet, because I thought, well, let's do the first one. We'll do the remodel. We'll get it ready. And I kept the books pretty tight on that project. So every house that I bought after that was 3-bedroom, 2-bath, under 1,400 square feet, because I knew what the budget was. I knew what the majors were, which are roof, air conditioning, and windows. And people say, you want to see the inside of the house? No, it's okay. I know what we're going to do. So after 4 or 5 of those, I said, here we go again. I'm getting out of my lane again. And I said, hey, I got this house. It's, it's a 4-bedroom, 4-bath, and it's 2,000 square feet. And so we bought it. I'm thinking, oh, here we go again. But I got out by the skin of my teeth. I said, no, stick with what you know. Stay in your lane, stay in your niche, in your market. Do what you know what to do.
Wow.
And so that turned into even a bigger project. I couldn't keep up then, so I had to hire more people.
Wow.
But that started probably in 2002. And then in 2006 or 7, the big one came. I was up in Brookings, Oregon, and my wife and I had a condo up there, and kept driving by the shopping center, and the shopping center just looks old and dilapidated. What's going on here? And nobody would ever give me any information. It was a pretty tight-knit community, so they didn't want to give up anything. And plus, the guys who were there were basically renting for nothing in that place.
Right.
So they don't want to tell anybody how they can buy the shopping center, because it's going to dig into their livelihood. Their rent's going to. So I found a guy here in town, again, another resource, and said, hey, Rick, there's this shopping center up in Oregon, and nobody else wants to do anything with it. And the guy was so sharp and so smart, because he stuck to his lane. His niche was commercial. He knew any commercial property, what he would pay, what it would take to turn it around. And so he said, well, how big is this place? I said, it's 110,000 square feet on 7 acres. And from the upstairs, you can see it was almost oceanfront property. And then he told me what to offer. And I said, Rick, they're never going to accept that. Are you nuts? So he said, no, I know what I'm doing. Just offer it to them. And sure enough, it took us a year to grind that one out. But after about a year, we secured that shopping center, had it appraised while it was in escrow. And the appraisal came back almost 6 times what we paid for that shopping center.
Wow.
And so I said, Rick, I think you know what you're doing.
Man.
So that led to another one. But, from learning single-family homes from my first broker, to learn how to build from the second one, to learn the commercial market from the third one, who, again, another resource who recently passed away, but his daughter's taking over the business, and her and I are getting along pretty good. So we're starting other projects now.
So now I know how to introduce you. This is Todd Cregar with Real Estate Mogul. I had no clue, man. That is amazing, man. And so when you said, I remember when you said you got the first house, and they was like, do you want to see the inside? You was like, no, because I know what I'm going to do with it. Because were you gutting them out? And you was, okay. And so you had your own team that they already knew what to do?
I had a budget. I knew that I could buy any house that was under 1,400 square feet. And I knew what my budget was if I had to put a roof, air conditioning, windows, and completely gut the inside. I had a budget for that. I knew what it was going to cost.
Wow.
So I wouldn't have to look at the house. I do a drive-by, and I say, well, the windows are looking good. The roof looks ratty, and maybe the AC.
Yeah.
So I'd make an offer, and the guy, do you want to see the inside? Nope, I already know what we're going to do. Because I knew what the cabinets, the flooring, everything cost.
Wow.
So, and then they thought, well, maybe I didn't ask enough.
Yeah.
And that started, there was a street in Fresno that I started the first house, and the lady next door came over and said, hey, can I see what you're doing? I said, sure. She goes, well, you want to buy my house? I said, sure. So we bought her house. And then the lady at the corner, hey, you want to see my house? Yeah. You want to buy my house? We ended up with 4 houses on that block.
Wow.
And we finished them, and we sat on them for a couple of weeks because, again, I'm thinking, I got a competitor down the street. I'm going to wait till he sells his to get the comp from that house so I can see what I want to sell mine for. And so I waited, and I called them up, and I said, hey, thanks for getting the biggest buck that you could for that house, because now I'm going to put I'm going to put all 4 of mine on there.
Wow.
And then I started fishing, probably in '89. These guys, when I was in the military, hey, you want to go fishing with us? Where are we going fishing? Oh, this is a town called Weaverville. It's about an hour west of Redding. The first time I went up there, I said, what the heck? But again, the first guy I met would tell me the history of Weaverville. We became friends. The guys I went fishing, we became friends. I said, you know what? This is a nice town, but there's nothing here for me.
Yeah.
Little did I know that in the last 5 years, again, we've bought more housing up there than I could even count. And the RV park that we used to stay at actually burned down in 2017. I kept chasing the old owner for 4 or 5 years. Finally, she decided, I'll sell it to you. So we did, and we got that up and running. So from a town, I thought that this is nothing more than a recreational stop once a year to go salmon fishing, turned into another big project.
Now, was that through? Did you learn about things that was about to happen in the town, or where did that come from, or was it just by chance?
I just watched, and I kept asking questions, and I talked to realtors up there and brokers. Hey, I'm a broker in Fresno. Yeah, whatever. That's all you'd hear is, yeah, you don't know what you're doing up here. Well, then I started studying the town and the restaurants and the economy up there, and found out that the inventory there is so short, and they haven't done anything with that town in so long, new construction and stuff, and the same houses are getting recycled, and it's hard to even rent a house up there. So again, I bought the worst piece of crap that anybody could see, and it was right by the golf course. They have a little golf course in Weaverville. And so I fixed it up, and they said, yeah, it's a really great little house you did there. But nobody would do their homework. I pulled the parcel map, and I said, well, people look at this house, and they see a fence, and they think, that's the box. There's the fence.
Right.
I get what's inside the fence. But if they look at the parcel map, they find that it tapered all the way to the end of the street, almost a city block. So again, shortage of housing. I said, well, hey, can I put an ADU on that property? And the county said, well, sure you can. It's all on the same parcel. Well, what about the water and sewer hookups and that kind of thing? It doesn't matter. It's all on the same parcel. Hook it up. So we pulled the permits, built that little house there, and one house became 2, and it cost me nothing because it was on the same property. But then people, you go up to Weaverville now, and you see a lot of these little ADUs popping up. But people get so ingrained on, I'm going to wake up today, I'm going to have bacon and eggs for breakfast, I'm going to go to work. They get so ingrained, so structured on their just the way they do things every day. They can't see, they look out the window, they don't see anything. They see the same thing every day.
Wow.
But for me, if I see an opportunity, I just go knock on the door. And a lot of people nowadays don't even want to do it. They're too scared.
Yeah. I just learned a new word, parcel maps. I'm going to go look that up when I get off of this podcast.
A
when you have guys like this, you got to listen, man, because they're going to say things and act like it's common knowledge, and it isn't.
Yeah, it's true. If you're in a business, it is. But
yeah.
And that's why realtors are so important with the public, especially first-time home buyers, because and I tell them, I said, if you're going to buy a house, I'm going to hold your hand from now until we close escrow. Well, that's weird. And I said, no, because there's going to be exactly things like you just said, a parcel map. Well, what's a parcel map? What's an APN number? Yeah. Which is a assessor's parcel number, which is assigned to that parcel map, which is in the book recording in the county, so people can identify the property. Right. So, yeah, by pulling that parcel map up and seeing that it was beyond the fence, they just didn't do their homework. And I find deals like that all the time. And there was an animal hospital veterinarian clinic in Weaverville, right on the highway, 300 feet of highway, commercial property. Nobody wanted it because they didn't understand. Well, what can you do with this? And what, there's lots of things that the county doesn't have. They don't have manuals that when it has a question, they answer at every end of paragraphs, no, you can't do this. They give you options and tell you how to do it. So to me, to change the zoning, get the zoning changed on that old animal hospital veterinarian clinic and turn it into live workspace and a garage turned into an office for a property manager and have an RV pedestal installed at the other end of the property. Now we just turned one small commercial property into generating 3 incomes every month. Wow. And it's the same with the RV park after the fire, it burned all the foliage and everything away. So I'd been staying at that place for 35 years, never knew all the infrastructure was under the ground because the owners would never say anything. So after everything burned, I said, man, there's like 10 or 12 RV slots here. Yeah, but then none of them worked because they burned up in the fire. Well, but it gave us a blueprint on where we wanted to go with it. So we bought that, and it's 300 feet of riverfront property with a private beach and a boat ramp. So we said, this is it. So we tore it up and started putting it back together again.
So I'm taking it your parents didn't do much for you as a kid, like as far as like giving you, they didn't spoil you. And so you probably was figuring out ways to get money, like, hey, hold up, I got money for this. And it seems like it was going that route. But
I had to figure it out. Yeah. It's just, what 17, 18-year-old kid gets on a Greyhound bus with no jacket and goes to Utah in the middle of winter to enroll in college? And that was me. And I remember getting off the bus in Ogden, Utah, and the bank sign said 14 degrees. I remember to this day. And the lady said, son, don't you have a coat? And I said, no, everything I got is in a cardboard box in the bottom of that Greyhound bus. And so she said, well, if you go over to the Bishop Storehouse, this is a Mormon church, if you go over to the Bishop Storehouse, they'll give you a coat. Yeah. I said, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. So I walked, probably the old story about walking barefoot in the snow. Well, I was basically in a polo and blue jeans and tennis shoes walking up 32nd Street to get to the Bishop Storehouse to get that coat. But there's just something in me that failure is not in my vocabulary. I refused. I'm surprised I just said the word.
But did you have that when you was young? Did you know that that's what it was when you was that age? Or were you did?
Oh, yeah. And when I failed, it hurt, man. Wow. Even in sports or anything else, why did I fail? Well, because you took a shortcut or you just didn't know what you're doing or you thought you knew. But no, it's more knowledge, more resources. I'm a big resource guy, man. Everybody in this world is a resource to me. I walk out here now and the guy breaking into my truck, that guy's going to be a resource one day. Right. Good or bad, doesn't matter.
Wow. What keeps you motivated now? Like, you've accomplished so much. Do you find like taking time off and like have you kicked back or do you it seems like to me you're still intense and you're still going. So how do you keep that motivation? What keeps you going?
Yeah, I don't know. Time off, I don't know. Yeah. Like we used to have a saying when I was working is that you don't call in sick when you're sick. You call in sick when you want a day off, to do something. So I don't know. I don't know what it is, Jay. Honestly, I have this desire just to succeed and I can't use that F word again. I can't fail. I mean, I know it's inevitable I will, and you can't avoid it. But when you see it coming, like a stop sign, you see it coming, you know you got to stop.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do to implement what you got to do to successfully stop? And to me, the failure thing is just, you got to, if you know it's coming and you prepare for it, it hurts a lot less. But, and I tell my wife all the time, I said, at my age, I don't have the luxury of making a mistake and trying to make it up on the next deal, because it just won't happen.
Wow. Do you have a routine that you follow, or is it just
every day?
Every day. Yeah.
4:30 a.m. It's coffee and a protein bar, and my wife wakes up and it's 3.5 mile walk, and then it's whatever business I do for the day, and every day without fail, it's a 1 hour nap.
Yeah.
Every day, and then I wake up and start the second part of the day. So there's a business day before lunch and there's a business day after lunch. And even when I worked for the state, people used to come in and said, man, this guy ain't doing anything because his desk is always clean. Well, when I go to bed at night, my desk better be clean, because if there's something laying on my desk that's triggering something in my mind, like what did I do? What could I have done to succeed or make that or finish that project today? I don't like going to bed with things being unfinished. It has to get done. Even if I get a credit card bill in the mail today, it's paid today. If I have a contract that needs to be signed for whatever real estate deal, it's signed, it's processed, everything is done when it happens. I don't put anything off to the next day.
I'm just fascinated. Like, where did this come from? Like, where did you get this from, man? That is crazy, man. That is.
I call it mental. I tell people all the time, it's just, you got to be mentally disciplined. And, and the definition, they used to ask, what's your definition of leadership? It's, you got to be able to motivate people to do things they don't want to do, and show them how to do it, even when they don't want to do it. But then you get the naysayers that say, well, I should have listened to you because I see what happened now, versus when they make that wrong decision.
Yeah.
Or it takes too much energy to produce what's necessary.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like through your journey of real estate, right? And, you meeting people, because when you were saying you were putting together the dots, but still it took a killer instinct to capitalize off of that. So I was like, where did you get that from? And then you started talking about the other part of the puzzle I didn't know about was the real estate. So would you say that's where you developed a lot of the business techniques and stuff?
I watched a lot of people in the military fail because to me, again, it's back to discipline. You're not going to hit a home run every time you go up to bat. You're going to strike out. You're going to make mistakes. Real estate taught me that it was another extension of the discipline that I had gone through for the last 30 years. That if you're not disciplined and you don't follow the structure that and have a plan, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And by meeting those people, and I remember too taking other agents around town, I say, you see what I see here? And they go, no, it's just another house. I said, well, the yard's not mowed. So what are you going to do, mow the lawn for him? I said, no, that's one of the first signs that the homeowner may be in trouble. When you don't have disposable income for a gardener or get your car fixed or something was going on with the house, then that's an opportunity.
Yeah.
So they didn't even want to knock on the door. So I knocked on the door and I had a contract in my hand. They go, hey, can you? No. See, you got to be willing to knock on the door. We're not going to just hand you anything.
Yeah.
But you got to be willing to do it. And part of that was, go back to my days as a parole agent out looking for fugitives. If you're afraid to go knock on a door, you're not going to ever catch or find anybody.
Wow. Yeah.
And take it a step further back for the military, if you don't ask, you're not going to get that door open either. So all the structure and discipline in my life over the years has probably led up to where the real estate was the most successful, because I used the military and the state employment to provide me the means to survive and to invest. And I, in turn, turned that into the real estate after I retired.
Wow.
For the third time.
So in your experience, is it easier or harder in business, in your opinion, now versus, let's say, the 90s?
It's, let's just say that the economy, the way it is today, it's a lot tougher doing business in this economy than it was when people were giving money away, basically.
Yeah.
But just because they give it away don't mean you don't want to put it into the right avenue, okay? Be smart with your money. Find your niche, find your lane, if you will, and stick to it. Because, some people get rich failing, but not me.
Yeah, and I took that in too, is when you said you found your niche, because there's a lot of fake hustle culture type things going around now. Like, you could do everything, you could do this, you could do that, but you said you honed in on one part of it, and that was like the key to that success, And I think that's very valuable. What advice would you give a kid? I'm John from around the way, got $5,000 I got from my, my money I got back from the government, you know what I'm saying? What are the next 5 steps, or what are the next steps I need to take to be able to take myself to the next level?
Okay, in my journal every year, I found from reading different books so the page 1 of my journal every year, I write what I want to do this year. Mm-hmm. And one of the things in there that I write was that I share my knowledge with somebody that's willing to listen, but don't take my knowledge and sit on it or not take advantage of it, because those are the people that fail. So if I were to tell you today, come along for the ride, and I'm not selling you books or training courses or anything, but if you listen to what I tell you, you'll be successful.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't have the patience for that either.
Yeah.
I mean, 5,000 today is not the same as 5,000 tomorrow.
Right.
But 5,000 a year from now is quite a different thing.
Right.
But you'll never get there unless you try. No risk, no reward.
Yes. So listen to somebody else that has knowledge. Stop thinking you know everything, right? And pay attention, have patience, hone in on one thing, keep going, have grit. That's what I'm taking from what you're saying, because it seemed, you had grit to do what you did. That's really great. Books, 3 books. What are 3 books that you suggest that would help little John from around the way get to that next level?
One, for instance, Think and Grow Rich, I read a long time ago.
At what age?
Oh, I don't know, probably within 5 years after it came out. So, I don't know, 20 years ago or something. Mm-hmm. The other one would be, people think I'm weird here, but there's an old wrestling promoter, Eric Bischoff, that wrote a book called Controversy Creates Cash. And third one is what's on everybody's nightstand in every hotel in America. Bible. Yeah. Because, structure and discipline, you can see it in all those books.
Yeah.
But do you have the discipline to start on page 1 and go to the end of that book? When I read, there's been many books, but there's some books that I just couldn't put down. And Think and Grow Rich was one of them. And when I started reading that book, I couldn't stop until I fall asleep. And I wake up and, what page was I on? I got to get back to that book.
Wow.
And then seeing other books, that local people have wrote, helped a lot too.
Amazing. Well, this is a busy man, so we appreciate your time, brother. And yes, there's a lot to learn from this interview. I appreciate your time. And guys, I hope you guys are taking note. I hope you took note of what this man is saying and really take it to heart what he's saying. Don't take it lightly. We're not, doing this for our health. This is real good, vital information. There's no excuses, man. You can get it too. Well, I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me here, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man.
And we'll do it again.
Yes, hopefully. Yes. Definitely do it again. But we signing out. Thank y'all for tuning in. Yes. Todd, appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, Jay.
Till next time.
Peace.
Bye.